Okay, so today I'm going to talk about GAMSAT courses. Now, you don't have to do a GAMSAT course, but you get a lot of great things from it, like tutoring and feedback, which is probably the most important thing, practice questions, and just being around like-minded people, which may drive you to be more competitive and do more stuff. So I thought it'd be better than just me regurgitating tips that you probably heard before a million times. So I'm like, why not refer you to the experts? So I haven't tried all the courses. I've only tried one and a few of the question banks that I'm going to talk about. But my friends have tried other ones, and I've tried to assimilate stuff that I've read about each of the courses online and try to give you a more cohesive look at all of them. And hopefully this helps you a little bit. The next thing I want to say, like on the courses, it's actually quite hard to get an objective measure of all the courses because, you know, if someone gets a bad score and they do their course, obviously they're going to say the course didn't work for them, even though perhaps they didn't prepare as well as they should have. On the other hand, if a course isn't very good and the person's just quite smart and worked very hard, they'll get a good score, and you know, that's going to change how they perceive the course. So I'm going to try and focus less on what people have said and more about what are you actually getting for what you're paying and how good the communication is between the customer, you, and the service provider. Now, some of you may want to try out the GAMSAT for the first time without doing any or very little prep, and I think that's kind of a waste of money because it's $500 and it's a lot of stress. So I feel like you should go all in and use it as an investment in your future, but I don't think you should waste money in places that you don't need to. At the end, I'm going to talk about what's the best bang for your buck, really. So stay tuned for that. Now, the first one I'm going to talk about is phrases. So I'm a bit biased because I actually did phrases, but I think it's good for a couple of reasons. The first one is that the founder actually makes it a point to do the GAMSAT each year, which I think allows it to stay updated and relevant. They also update the interface for the questions each year to make it align with the actual GAMSAT really well. They also do these mock exams where they try to make the questions harder than the actual exam, which makes you feel a little better going into the exam, which I thought was great. The only problem is that it is a little pricey. So I'm going to talk about at the end how you can kind of reduce the price, but pretty much towards the end leading up to the exam, you can do mock exam courses where you just pay for the mock exam without paying for the full upfront course, and you actually can get a better deal that way. Now, the next one I want to talk about was Grad Ready. So a few of my friends did this one a couple of years ago, and I have a few friends that are tutors in Grad Ready now. So when me and my friends were comparing some of the questions that we did to prepare in the mock exams, we found that phrases seem to have slightly better work solutions and their questions seem to skew a little bit harder. So that was probably the biggest differences between the course, but Grad Ready also seems a bit more cheaper if you want tutoring as well. So, you know, it's kind of like a trade-off as well. So, you know, it's probably not as going to prepare you as well, but it's also cheaper. So, you know, if you make the most of it, you probably could save a bit of money and still get a good score. Now, the third source you can draw on is ACER, and now they have their own practice exams and practice questions, which I recommend you should just get because they give you a good overview of what the GAMSAT feels like, and you know, they're by the people that actually produce the exam, and they're not that expensive. So I think that's a great place to start regardless. And then the next one I want to talk about was ACE GAMSAT. Now, ACE GAMSAT, similar name, different thing entirely. Now, this one, I actually, when I did a little bit of digging, it seemed like the questions were a little outdated, and some of the reviews actually made me quite worried. Like, they said things like, you know, they couldn't get their money back, it was a bit of a scam, didn't prepare them very well, and when I hear things like, you know, you can't even get a refund when you try and communicate with them, I think that makes me quite apprehensive about going down that line. You know, I've never heard anything of the like said about some of the other courses I mentioned, so I think, you know, that one's the one where I haven't had any experience with, but I would be careful of just for those reasons. Now number 5, ooh, camera wobble, yeah, we're good. Number 5, Des O'Neill. Okay, so Des O'Neill has good question books. A few of my friends just did Des O'Neill and they actually got better scores than me, quite good scores. So what I would recommend is that you can probably get them off, you know, people who are a couple years older than you if you have any friends. And that's also, like, you know, the ACER practice questions, a good place to start, and you could probably focus a lot of your earlier study using those two materials. As long as you get the more recent one, which is, you know, where I would go. Now the last one I want to mention was Gold Standard. Now, I think Gold Standard is something that I probably wouldn't use that much, because the way that the GAMSAT is kind of changed in the last couple of years, it's been quite significant. And I think their questions aren't as relevant anymore. They're more like science theory based, as opposed to the GAMSAT being more like problem solving and comprehension based. So I think they're probably less useful than the earlier resources I mentioned. You'd probably start with the earlier ones I mentioned. Now, if I had my time again and I could prepare for the GAMSAT again, this is how I would do it. I would start with the Des O'Neill questions, the newest version I can get, and the ACER practice questions and practice exams. I'd start there, practice, 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 reflect, 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 reflect why you got the question wrong, why you got it right. Practice essays a lot, every day. Think about reading great essays, getting good ideas from them, drawing on them, and working on your essays. Then, once you feel like you've practiced a fair bit, then maybe approach someone you think is reputable, like a tutor, and just, you know, get in one or two questions and try to talk through with them some of the things you're struggling on. Then go back, fill in the holes. Then when you get closer to the exam, probably a month or two out, do one of those mock exam courses. So the phrases is the one that I would recommend. And around that time, you can usually get it for a bit cheaper. I think at the moment you can get it for $900, which is still pretty expensive, but you also get a lot of questions. And I think you should do that and do the mock exams, because they format it like the actual exam. You can practice timing, you can experiment with, you know, what you're going to eat on the day, stuff like that, which I think will prepare you quite well for the actual exam. So that is all I wanted to mention, just a quick video on some of the courses that you can do preparing for the GAMSAT. Now, you don't need to, but I think having some help along the way can really help you stay focused and get towards those goals. So this is Share. Thanks for that. This is Share. So this is Share. Wait, no. Alright, this is Share.